Hello, everybody. So I'm eating breakfast. And it's honestly going to be a pretty simple breakfast, so I'm not even going to really be here for a while, but I just wanted to sort of, make a single video I do where I talk about the ills of me dating and things like that. So let's talk about it. Let's have a conversaus. So the advice that I always get almost every single time that I talk about having problems dating is, well, why don't you try to date in queer spaces? It's going to be so much easier for you to date in queer spaces. So I've talked about this before, and I think my long-term hardcore followers already know what I'm about to say. I do appreciate you guys for being here long enough for me to bitch and moan about this enough to the point where it annoys you. I'm not queer, and I really have a big issue, honestly, with people projecting that onto me. Now, I completely understand why, to some people, they want to put that label on me. For a lot of people, queer is a catch-all. It is I know what I can do to make this longer. I'm gonna put some dishes away. It's a catch-all. It's an umbrella term. It is something that, really represents, something for every person who is not cis and het, but I'm not queer. And it's honestly, because I'm a trans woman, there are a lot of people who really want to put me into that category. And I think that's part of why I fucking hate it. As a trans woman. Now listen, a couple of things we gotta get out of the way. I'm not invested, and I want to make this super clear. I'm not invested in the idea of being heterosexual. I'm not invested in the idea of being straight, right? I'm not invested in the image and the social capital that comes with either of those things. I'm really, truly, and honestly not, right? That all being said, I am a woman, particularly a feminine woman, exclusively attracted to men. And so when I say that I am straight, that is the most accurate and efficient way of communicating that point. I am a feminine woman. We can even keep the feminine part out of there. Exclusively attracted to men. And that is going to change the type of interactions I have with people when it comes to dating. I think part of why I don't like even being, look, I understand why people invite me to these spaces. I do get it. Like, I'm a trans person, to some people that means a lot more to them than it does to me. I get it. But it's just not for me. And I want to make it clear that this is not something that comes out of like self-hatred or not liking myself or anything. It's just, I've made several attempts to be in those spaces because I thought, well, maybe I would find some sort of solace and comfort and community within a queer space. And I discovered not so much. Because a lot of you guys, I think the reason why people always suggest queer spaces to me is I don't know how much of a realistic view you guys actually have of my life. Not that I'm like, I need y'all have like this best view of my life or whatever, but like, for example, there was a time when I was really, 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 really young, right? When I was in high school and middle school and all that stuff, where all I wanted to go to, and if you're in LA, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, was this party called Tiger Heat, right? Tiger Heat was like this little LGBT party, you know, in LA. And when you're living in Walnut, California, you know, all you want to do is jump into some place that's super fucking queer. So maybe you can find like-minded individuals, right? That's kind of the mindset that you have of like, okay, I'm in this really sort of conservative town. Let me go somewhere where there are a shitload of people like me, and so I can feel loved and embraced and da-da-da-da-da, right? So through several different attempts, I tried to come out to Tiger Heat to have a good time on a Thursday night. I never made it, right? I never made it. Now, I bring that up because I do feel like maybe if I did, maybe I would feel very differently about this. But instead of really being able to have a time where I built some sort of community within the LGBT community, I eventually got older and you know, eventually, you know, went through the process of trying to be stealth and all that other stuff, and started to go to what a lot of gay people would call straight bars. Now, I just call them bars. But some people, because I've learned from my gay friends that, you know, like I'm very comfortable basically almost anywhere for the most part. But a lot of my gay friends, like, they don't feel comfortable going to the bars that I go to because of how straight they are. Now, really the places I go to, I mean, especially when it's the goth community and stuff, they're places for everyone. It's not like, you can't come here. It's more like, this is not a specifically gay space. And so because of that, it's not tailored to gay people, right? And some people don't like that. Some people really want something to be tailored to them exactly, which I get. But that's not really the spaces that I tend to go into. I tend to really get along in places where there are people of different walks of life, different genders, all this other shit, all surrounding around a certain thing. Like I go to a karaoke bar all the time, for example, right? I go to a karaoke bar because I love watching people do karaoke, and all different types of people come in and out of the karaoke bar. I go and do goth and industrial shit all the time, and all different types of people come in and celebrate goth and industrial music. Most gay bars, most even like LGBT thing, it's not people coming together to celebrate a specific thing. It's people who feel like they can't, like they either can't have fun in other places, or that this is a place specifically designed for them. Do you know what I mean? And I don't. And after going through the process of wanting to be part of that thing, and then transitioning, and then going, you know, stealth for a bit, and then, you know, having my comfort zone of being a straight woman, it's like I just, you know, after my relationship, when I gave it a try and I was like, oh, let me try to go to these gay bars, I just felt so heinously out of place, you know? That was my experience, is that I didn't feel like I belonged there, you know? I didn't have the feeling that a lot of people did. Oh, this is my safe space, this is my zone where I can be and exist. I had, you know, it's like the feeling that a lot of people get, you know, when straight people walk into their space. It's like, why is she here? What the fuck is she doing here? Do you know what I mean? And that's very much the feeling I've gotten from most of the gay spaces, most of the LGBT spaces I've tried to go into. And so, you know, that's just kind of led to me having a lot of really uncomfortable situations where I'm trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. It's not for me. Now, there's this pretty big poly LGBT, non-binary, queer, whatever, community in LA. And for the people who do eventually find out that I'm transgender, they do they do always tell me, oh, you should go here, you should check this out, you should see what that's all about. Now, I understand why people who are not queer would say, oh, you're a trans person, here is a it definitely feels a lot like people are trying to segregate me in a very unnecessary way. To a lot of people who are not attracted to trans women, to a lot of people who do not date trans women, they think, oh, sure, a queer meetup where all the queers go. Yeah, I guess that it would be good for a trans person. And they don't understand that if I'm going to go somewhere to find a partner, it's not likely going to be in a queer space. It's not likely going to be among queer people, because people who are in those spaces tend to be, but are not always, women attracted to women. You know, spaces where queer is like the headline, it's usually women and femmes attracted to other women and femmes. It's not usually, you know, men who are attracted to trans women. It's sometimes people who have a queer sexuality where they're attracted to whoever, you know, or whatever, but it's very rarely the sort of person I like, where I like men, I'm exclusively attracted to men, and I'm exclusively attracted to men who have experience with transgender women. You know, it's a different type of thing, right? It's definitely, let me put y'all over here so you guys can actually fucking see me. It's a completely different type of thing. And it is a little aggravating for me to constantly have to have people listen to my frustrations and say, well, Catherine, if you go to this little queer meetup, you'll be fine. Because it's just not true. It's just not true. Now, if I were a lesbian or I were bisexual or things like that, and I was just having issues, you know, going to, for example, if I were a trans lesbian and I was going to these lesbian spaces and I was dealing with a ton of TERFs, you know, who didn't want to deal with me going to a queer space for dating stuff would make so much fucking sense, because there's obviously going to be a pretty concentrated group of people there who are into trans women or are into trans people or into queer people, right? That's not going to be the experience. It's like the story I told you guys of it's like the story I told you guys about the guy that I went out with, where he was like, oh yeah, let's go to this queer party, you know, because in his mind it was everyone, you know, right? It was like, oh yeah, everyone's gonna come to this queer party, right? And when we went, what did it end up being? It ended up being predominantly gay men. It was not a queer, all-inclusive party where all types of people were there. It was a fucking gay party. People called it queer, but it was a gay party. Like, it's, you know, and that's kind of the way that queer as a phrase, honestly, has kind of worked, and how I've sort of seen it been used, is people love to call anything south of a man wearing blue and a girl wearing pink queer, right? But really what it always ends up being is just people who are gay. Not all the time. Obviously, it's often people who don't have, you know, typical gender expression or whatever. But so often that's what it is. It's a lot of people who are, you know, not what I'm usually looking for. And I think sometimes my frustration with being suggested to go to queer spaces is like, it just also, it feels so fucking condescending. I think that's really where it hits me and why it bothers me so much. It feels so fucking condescending. Like, you don't think I've thought of that? You know, like, what people don't get is that, yes, me being in a quote-unquote straight space does have its frustrations for sure, absolutely, but it's a lot easier of a place for me to be than in a queer space. Because listen, whenever I've gone to you know, queer parties and things with my friends, or, you know, even when I've gone to like LGBT events and things with people. Like when I hosted the one of the things at the for GLAAD, people actually came up to me and were like, "So are you LGBT in any way?" Now to be fair, it's GLAAD, so it's not like they don't have a track record of hiring people who are not LGBT in any way, right? But even in that space, I felt like I had to explain myself to people. And what I ended up always explaining to them was, yeah, I'm a straight woman. And, you know, I'm very big on not taking up space, not in, being somewhere I don't really need to be. And so I just tend not to, really like want to force it, you know. And when I started trying to go to these queer spaces after I got out of my relationship, I really did feel at a certain point that I was forcing it. I never really had fun. I met people. Gay men were always really nice to me. I don't know. With gay men, it's kind of hard to tell if they're being nice or shady, you know. It was a lot of, you know, gay men telling you that I was so pretty and I was so this and I was so that. And, you know, I'm really bad at being complimented, you know, but, you know, that's my personal problem. But, you know, at the end of the day, was this a space for me to meet men? No. Was this a space for me to, you know, socialize? I mean, not even. I don't think. I mean, I made friends and I met people, but are those people who, like I said, with the spaces that I go to, I tend to surround myself with people who have similar interests of mine. These are not spaces where people are being excluded. I can see how people who are not, you know, I can see how people who are gay or lesbian could feel excluded within some of the spaces that I'm in. But listen, the bar I go to is a predominantly woman-owned bar. It's kind of I would not say that it's a feminist bar. I would not say that, but I would say that there are a ton of people who work there who are very feminist minded. Like my favorite bar back is a sex worker, like, and it's a place where everyone's fucking welcomed, you know. The goth community has a hella large, you know, has a hella large community of, you know, people who are gender non-conforming. And, you know, one of the two runners of the parties that I used to go to were both non-binary. You're like, come on, like it's I don't really go out of my way to enter into spaces, you know, because of the sexuality of the people that are there. I go because I have common interests, right? And so that's why I am never really that eager to go to these gay spaces or these queer spaces. It's just, that's the way that I think about it, you know? Because the thing is, I've already gone through the process of, okay, let me just try it and let's just go, and it doesn't work out, you know? Like I get invited to a lot of, you know, especially within the BDSM scene, I get invited to a lot of like queer play parties and things like that. And I can only sit there and say, what's there for me? You know, what is there for me? You know, in the comment that I was responding to this morning, there was like a debate about, you know, whether or not, you know, I would date a trans man. And I've said publicly before that, you know, I would date a trans guy. I just haven't met a trans guy who I connected with, you know, like it's not a no for me. It's just not something that's happened. Right. You know, it's, you know, but for me, it's like if I were to meet a trans man, I would meet him the same way that I would meet any other man. It would be at a space where I have an interest and he's also in that space, and we talk and we flirt and it goes that way. That's how that would have to work for me. It would not be me going out of my way to go to a queer space to find a trans guy who sees himself in that way and then goes to this. It's too many layers. You know what I mean? It's too many layers. I'd rather just go out with men who are already taking up the space in the spaces that I already frequent. Like, I mean, that's I think how most people do it. And I understand that yes, I am trans, and maybe that complicates things to some degree. But in my mind, I'm a pretty boring and normative person, and I don't really need to go out of my way to find men interested in me. That's not the point. And I also think the idea that, you know, things would just be easier for me in these spaces is just so not true. You know, I don't see how it would be. You know, I don't see how it would be. I get how people get to that conclusion because they think, oh, well, she's trans, and you know, of course she's gonna be, you know, welcomed in those spaces. But would I? But would I? I mean, listen, the past couple of times I've gone to a gay party, unless it's like the only place I've gone to, and if you know LA, you probably understand this. The only place I've gone to that you could argue was a queer space that I had a really good time in was fucking the Abbey in West Hollywood, which most of my friends call the straightest space, the straightest place on Santa Monica, right? Because it's very much not a. I mean, yes, it's obviously a very historical, you know, gay club or whatever, but it's also very much a mixed bag where it's kind of one of those places where straight people in quotations are taking over, right? And that's how a lot of LGBT people use it, look at it rather, is straight people taking over, right? And as trans as I am, I'm still a straight person. And there's been times where I've gone to gay parties and they don't even have women's restrooms. You know, they don't even have women's restrooms. You know, and so it's just like, it's too much of me trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't make sense. It's, you know, for me. I'm not saying for other people it won't, but it doesn't make sense for me. I've accepted that while maybe when I was younger, I self-identified as queer, and that was a very important time for me, and it was really important for me to have that identity and feel that way. In my journey and in my process, I came to realize that I was not queer and that I was just a binary, you know, straight trans woman. And that at the end of the day, that is where I truly sit. And that was a realization that came out of me just being real with myself. It came out of me just being like, you know what, as much as I would like to be interesting and different and unique, I'm just a straight trans girl, you know? And that wasn't the way that I wanted to feel. You know, when I was younger, I definitely wanted, like I said, something more interesting, which I'm sure sounds kind of shitty to say out loud, but that's who I ended up being, is a straight trans woman, you know? And so the spaces that I fit into, in quotations, the spaces that I feel the most comfortable and the most loved and the most accepted are just not, they're not queer spaces. They're just not, you know? And again, this doesn't come out of hatred or self-hate or anything like that, because I love that those spaces exist. I've just discovered and realized that they're really not spaces for me. They're really not spaces for me. They're really spaces for people who feel like they can't go anywhere else than here. You know, I am incredibly privileged, and I know that there are plenty of straight people who go to gay bars and things like that. Yes, I get that, but to me, it's just, it's not. I don't have a good time. I've gone to so many. And I've gone to so many different types. I've gone to so many different places, and it's just not for me. But put me in. But slap me down into a Irish pub almost anywhere, and I will have an amazing night. Put me in a good sports bar, and I will have an amazing night. Put me in a good karaoke bar, and I will have an amazing night. But a gay bar, it's going to be a lot of me being aggravated and shade and shit I just don't want to navigate around. You know what I mean? I just don't want to navigate around. you know? It's like when I told you guys I went to that party, right? And I started to see a lot of those old mindsets that I used to have and used to interact with, right? It was like you're just around people who are so guarded because of where they're at. And a lot of that turns into bitterness and anger and drama and bullshit and just, stuff I don't really want to engage with, right? I don't want to engage with the insecure trans girl who, needs to make sure that everyone knows that she's sickening. That's a mindset that comes from a place that I understand, but no longer identify with, right? So for me, I'm not really going to be rushing into being around people who feel that way, especially when, I'm at a place where I'm not really thinking like that. I'm not really operating like that, I get why they're there. I get why that exists. But do I want to be in a room full of people who, because here's my thing, and you guys can drag me for this or whatever, okay? You guys can drag me for this or whatever. And maybe I'm speaking ignorantly because I'm not in a position where I'm not in a position where I need these spaces, but I kind of have a thing where, I feel like if you only feel like, I think the people who feel they can only exist in those spaces and they can only go here and they can only sort of, exist in this one particular area, they usually carry around a lot of insecurity, and they often carry around, and sometimes that insecurity is twisted into negativity, and I just don't like being around that. Like, I think that people who get to the point where they're like, whatever, I deserve to exist in every fucking space that is out there. I think I get along with people like that a little bit more. I like people who don't feel like they can't. I mean, it's LA, bitch. It's Los Angeles. All right, it's Los Angeles. Okay, like I'm not gonna say that there aren't spaces and areas where shit, isn't pleasant, but it's LA, bitch. It's LA. Like at the end of the fucking day, if you can't be out and proud here, I don't know where the fuck you can be. But again, maybe I'm speaking from a place of ignorance. Like, I'm totally willing to accept that maybe I have a sort of ignorant perspective because I am not a person who feels that they need to be in a safer space when they go out and stuff like that. Maybe that's very possible. I'm very open to the idea that maybe I'm wrong and speaking ignorantly. I don't really think I am, but I'm open to that being a possibility. I think that I vibe with those people more than others, but I get it. Like, especially if you're queer and you've got like a lot of like pronoun stuff and other things where you can't really go to a normal in quotations bar or whatever and have that respected. I get why you'd want to go to a place where pronoun badges are the standard. That's not confusing really to me. I get that. I really do. But do I need that? No, not really. I'm a woman. I'm a woman and I'm straight. There's really no extra qualification. There's really no extra disclaimer beyond me being transgender that I need to really have. And half the time when I leave the fucking place, when I go to these munches and shit, I'm very rarely going thinking, oh, I'm gonna make me a man. I'm gonna da-da-da-da. I'm there to be social. I'm there to connect with people in the community because we see each other everywhere. In fact, you know what happened yesterday, y'all? Remember I told you about that man who was talking shit, who cornered one of my friends at a party, and said that I had a direct conversation with him. Remember that? Remember when I said that? So yesterday, I stayed at the bar that I go to. I stayed after the bar because I'm that fucking bitch. And I overheard these guys that I've seen all the time at the bar, and they mentioned the guy mentioned this person's name, and the guy who I was talking about has a very particular name. It's a very unique name. I've never really known anyone who has that name, and I said, "Oh fuck, is he Indian?" And he's like, "Yeah." Does he usually wear like shirts with the collar open kind of thing? He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, I fucking hate that guy." Like, LA is so small. LA is so small. I mean, it's very large, but the fact that this guy who like is completely like, this is a guy who works with guys who frequent my bar, who I met at a polyamory meetup. You know, or I didn't meet him. He knows of me, I don't know of him. You know, and it's just like, what the fuck? It's the 6 degrees of separation are really intense. So I very rarely go to any sort of space thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna find a man or whatever. I usually go thinking, all right, I'm gonna meet people in the community, and then we're probably gonna see each other in other places, and it's not gonna be fun and cool. That's basically as deep as it goes for me. So, yeah. Anyway, I've made dinner. I should probably go. This is a good conversation. Don't be a hoe. See how I did that? I'm such a rapper. I'm just gonna drop a hot track on that ass. Yo. I plan to be super efficient today. Today it's 10 o'clock and I'm making breakfast, which is not common for me. It's very uncommon for me to be up this early. So, you know, I'm very proud of myself. I'm going to a Star Wars party tonight. I will probably end up doing a broadcast later as I'm getting ready for my the Star Wars party. I have no clue what I'm gonna wear. I take it back. Let me not lie to you. I have some clue of what I'm gonna wear. I have some clue. How cute it will be, we'll have to see. Ooh, bitch, I really do have bars. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.